Hey y'all, it's Eva Ruth, and lately I've been reaching for my Doer jeans. While they look just as good as your favorite pair of jeans, they are 5 times stretchier than normal denim, so I'm comfortable wearing them while I'm running around. So go now to shopdoer.com/CC Austin and get yourself a pair. You can get 15% off your first order. And don't forget, check out their Black Friday sale from November 28th to December 1st. That's shopdoer.com/CC Austin.
Today on CityCast Austin, property tax bills will be hitting mailboxes soon. And for folks in Travis County, you may notice yours went up. Judge Andy Brown is here to explain why that is and update us on how taxpayer-funded childcare is going and what it's like to deal with Tesla. It's Monday, November 24th. I'm Nikki Devon, and this is what Austin's talking about. Hello, I am here with Judge Andy Brown, our Travis County judge, and we are going to catch up. What is up? Judge Brown, how are you?
I'm good here on a weirdly warm November day.
It's so warm outside. It's beautiful. I'm into it. So I'm super excited to catch up. So after the July 4th floods, Travis County approved to raise taxes by 8%. To bring in $42 million for disaster response special reserve fund. And for the average taxable homestead, it's an additional $71.66 that'll be tacked onto the 2026 bill once, right? Not recurring. Meanwhile, voters in Austin just rejected a tax rate increase, signaling that taxpayers here are kind of fed up with rising taxes. So how do you, one, justify the increase of taxpayers who can barely afford their tax bill as it is? But two, how did you get it to where it only happens once and it's not reoccurring?
Yeah, no, great questions. 10 years ago, counties and cities could raise their rates basically by 8% a year without going to the voters. The legislature shrunk that a few years ago to 3.5%. So we can't increase more than 3.5% each year without asking the voters for permission. There's a couple exceptions for that they created. And one was exactly for the situation that we saw ourselves in this past summer. So we keep reserves in case there are disasters. We do that normally. Our reserve amount, I think, was $15 million. So we immediately blew through that with these floods. So we've spent $22 million so far just on direct response to the floods and to the cleanup and things like that. So what the tax mechanism is, just so that we're all clear, we went up by 3.5%. That's what the legislature lets us do each year without voter approval. So we did that. That's the kind of normal amount that we go up. The increase of the $71 that you mentioned, that's, first of all, that's over a year. So you divide that by 12 for whatever home we're looking at there. And so that is meant to help out when the state declares a disaster. Like if I declare a disaster, we can't do that alone. It has to be the state or the federal government declaring it. And they did. And the reason we did that is because if we have another disaster, if we have a big fire tomorrow and we had not done this, we would have no money in reserves at all.
Right.
And that nobody wants that situation where the county's being asked to respond and we can't because we don't have the money to hire, debris removal or any of the many other things that we do in a disaster. The other reason for doing it is that while FEMA does sometimes reimburse for disaster costs, I am not blind to the fact that we have a president who has openly called for getting rid of FEMA,
right?
A president who has made federal cuts across the board to things that he doesn't like. In my opinion, it seems like he's cutting things that help benefit lower income people. And I'm just guessing that, Austin and Travis County, because of the way we vote, aren't high on his list of places that he's trying to make life easy for. And so we, I think, did the prudent thing, which was to do that 1 year, very limited disaster tax so that we can maintain our balanced budget, so that we can be ready to respond to disasters as they come up. And we all know they will. And that we're not kind of at the whims of President Trump and whether he decides he wants to fund our disaster response or not.
Now, I got to say, of all of the things that I personally don't mind being taxed for, disaster relief is high on the list for me personally. I'm just like, yeah, this is money that makes sense to me. Sure. Yes, let's get this figured out. But y'all are now facing a lawsuit from some residents who claimed you, and I'm putting this in quotation marks because it just sounds kind of catchy, tax to the max under the disaster tax law, which is what allowed you guys to raise the property rate over the 3.5% without voter approval. So I want you just to kind of address this idea. Did Travis County Commissioner's Court misuse the disaster tax law?
Yeah, no, we didn't is the answer to your question. And we don't really do anything without consulting with our lawyers. So we have our county attorney, Adelia Garza, has a staff of lawyers that both do prosecutions, but they also have a civil division. Part of that civil division represents us, like they're the general counsel to the commissioner's court. And of course, we checked with them before doing this, and I am confident that we followed the law and that this is exactly what that law was meant to do. I know one question that has come up is that so far we've expended 22 million. The amount that we're getting from this tax after a year will be 42 million, something like that. We had less than a month to figure out what amount to do for that. So we are, within a month of the floods having happened, we had seen millions and millions of dollars of expenses coming in with no end in sight. And the way the law is, we did not have the luxury of saying, you know what, we're going to see what the expenses are throughout the next year, and then we'll pay ourselves back. That's not how that law works. It's just that used to be how it works, but the legislature changed that. And so we had to decide within that less than 30-day period, because of the deadlines and because of when the flooding happened and because when our budget process happens and the notice that we had to give to the public on our tax rate and everything like that, we had to make that decision. I think we made the right decision. I think that this is, again, putting Travis County and Travis County residents in the best possible position for not only this disaster, but also future disasters. And, my understanding is that we are well within the law that the legislature passed in doing it exactly the way that we did it.
Yeah, because we got to get those reserves back, right? Like, we got to have something in the kitty. If we've already exhausted it, we have to replenish it so that we can prepare for the next year.
Yep. And we're, we're the, I think, number 5 most likely community in the United States to have a big wildfire.
Yeah.
Luckily, this past summer, because of investments that the city and the county and even the state, TDM, has made, we were able to put out several wildfires this summer that could have turned into something much bigger. But because we got to them so quickly, there were a couple of them during the weekend that Formula One was here that I'm thinking of in particular. They put them out quickly. They had bulldozers that bulldozed a ring around it to stop the fire from advancing. They had trucks and Starflight and others putting the fire out.
That's awesome.
So yeah, we are in a disaster-prone region.
Yeah. Flooding,
fires, freezes, as everybody knows, very likely here.
I think we forget that sometimes. I know I do.
Yeah.
I forget. So I'm going to switch gears just for a little bit. In a recent commissioner's court meeting, some public speakers have brought up the tax rebate deal with Tesla. And the Austin American-Statesman has reported that Tesla is withholding data that the county is asking for during a compliance review. So I'm just curious, is Tesla cooperating with the compliance review, and where are we in that review process right now?
So Travis County signed an agreement with Tesla a couple months before I became county judge. So I've been county judge for about 5 years. So it was a few months before that they signed this agreement.
Wow, shit. Okay.
Yeah, it's been there. And so, and the agreement, as I understand it says that Tesla must pay their property taxes, all property taxes for that land that they own. And then if they do certain things outlined in this agreement with the county, then they get some portion of those property taxes back. Beyond that, I can't really comment on it because we're still in that review process with them. And the thing I can say is we have not given them any money yet. Like they've been, again, this agreement has been going for several years and they have been paying all of their taxes as far as I know. And we have not given them any back. So what we are in the process of is looking at whether they have complied with that contract.
So we don't even know you. We could owe them millions of dollars, and we don't know that as a county. I mean, could it come down like that? Could it turn out that we owe him like millions of dollars in tax rebates or whatever?
It will come down to whatever the agreement says and what our compliance team. So we have a team of sort of economic development folks, and then of course our attorneys that look at that agreement, look at what the economic development people, what their determination is of whether they have complied with it in combination with the lawyers, and then they will advise us as the commissioners to make a decision based on that information. Okay, so
it sounds like since this has been happening for 5 years, everybody knows what. It sounds like it's like everybody's preparing for what could or could not happen and what could or could not be coming down the pipe. Okay, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Is there a timeline for the Tesla rebate review?
No, it's just when it's complete.
Yeah. Okay, all right. And I don't know if you can answer this either, but in general, like what kind of neighbor is Tesla? I can't tell if Tesla has been good for our city and county or if it's just been, oh, this is just another tech billionaire person and there's no good or bad. He just is. He exists just like Google or Facebook or Meta or whatever. Like I can't tell if he's adding value to our city.
Yeah, what I can say, I probably shouldn't get too much into that exact thing, but what I can say is that I think what the combination of Donald Trump and Elon Musk did to DC has been just atrocious. And it's the politic. I just don't agree politically with those two folks on so many things. That's what I can't say. I don't like the direction our country is going right now. I don't like, these, not only what's happening, what we're seeing with families being torn apart, but beyond that, just with our economy and what, between tariffs and just eviscerating federal agencies, kind of goes back to our first point that we depend on the federal government for so many things, from disaster response to helping people with SNAP with these relatively very small payments that they get each month to help them make ends meet to buy groceries when they're out of work and things like that. That there's just so much that I personally feel about the direction of the federal government that is not going a good direction because of Trump and folks that came in there with him. I'm happy to talk all day long about my disagreements with the DC administration.
I love that. So I want to ask you about something that I'm super excited about. So on Election Day 2024, Travis County voters approved a tax rate increase of 2.5 cents per $100 valuation to expand countywide access to affordable, high-quality childcare, after-school, and summer programs. I'm super stoked about this. 1 year later, funding has already started to flow into these programs, and some children are already being served. So I'm super curious how this happened so fast. How'd y'all get this out the door so quickly?
Yeah, this has been a great example of partnerships between, the local government here, business community, child care advocates, and we all agree that this is something that not only helps parents and children get high quality childcare when they might not be able to afford it otherwise, but it also helps our economy by allowing new parents who want to be in our workforce, want to get job training to improve their lot in life, but can't do so because of the extremely high cost of childcare these days. So I have kids that are 9 and 10 years old. We were paying at one point close to $1,000 a month for each of them, which at the time seemed crazy expensive. Yeah. But today it is $2,000 for 0 to 3 childcare. That like average cost is $2,000 a month, which
$2,000
blows my mind. Yep. This is according to we've done some or looked at studies, I guess, that the sort of childcare advocates have done. But yeah, it's crazy.
Why
and
is it so expensive? They
so
don't do
I met, it is.
They just lay there.
Right, exactly. If only. No, so I met with one of the smaller providers in Travis County last week, went to her facility, which is a lot of them are homes that are kind of converted. This particular one, I guess, converted what used to be her garage into like a really beautiful environment for little kids. And then I think one other room in the house. And we were talking about her costs, her day-to-day and everything. First of all, it was clear that she cared for those kids so much. She did so much on top of what the state requires her to do in terms of reading to kids and creating a loving environment there. It was really beautiful. But her number one cost is staff. It's harder and harder to hire good people and to pay them enough to keep them there these days. Another big cost was just the electric bill. That's gone up a ton over the last few years, just what you pay for electricity. And then, of course, like mortgage and things like that. And so, there's just costs in general. Again,
so much money.
And we want to have, great people that have good salaries that are taking care of our kids 0 to 3. So we have gotten some of that money out the door in record time. We're the first local government to do this in Texas and one of the first in the nation. I think King County in Seattle has done something similar, and we're learning some things from them. But every other program that has done it so far has taken more than 2 years to get money out the door. We did that in, I think, a year and a half or so. Wow. We've kind of taken the two-phased approach where we're putting money out now to existing providers to increase their capacity and increase the number of kids they're hosting. And then we'll have a process in years 2 and 3 where we would have more of a sort of competition. We put it out for a bid to different folks to figure out, how do we increase the number of providers? How do we increase the number of childcare slots? And how do we address the childcare deserts and then the time deserts too, like people that work in restaurants or shift jobs that require them to work at night? How do we get childcare where that is needed as well?
Oh, I love this. And you mentioned this at the beginning. There are other governmental entities that are following suit and showing interest and pitching in, or maybe doing the same thing, right? Is it kind of spreading?
Yeah, I think so. Yes, it is. I think other local governments have called us to ask how we did it and are interested in doing it themselves, both in Texas and outside of Texas. I know the state of Texas, the legislature had, I think, some kind of interim committee or study on this at some point. So my hope is that our program will be great, that we will show how it's helping kids, helping our economy, helping childcare providers, and that they will replicate this across the state and across the nation, because it's good policy. And you want people to have the freedom to go to work if they want to. You want kids, especially in those ages, to have top-notch, high-quality care. And I think this program is on its way to doing that.
This $2,000 is still just like swirling around in my brain. And I also know that it's just going to get more and more expensive, right? And so I like the idea of kind of making it a little bit competitive. But I'm imagining that as things get more expensive, we might have to revisit this again. And again, this is another one of those things that I'm like, yeah, this makes sense. Raise taxes for this thing. I'm curious if, stuff like childcare or healthcare, do you ever find, is it ever hard to get constituents to vote in favor of things like this? Because this is just a dope program. And my hope is that it just keeps getting funded and keeps getting funded and keeps getting funded. But I know also as constituents, we are tired of taxes being raised. But this seems like it would be an exception to me.
Yeah. So I think the county we've done a good job of coming to voters for tax increases only when it's a good proposal and only when it's very well thought out and spacing it well. So we had a bond that we do I think it's about every 6 years. We come to the voters and say, this is the amount of money we need to improve transportation infrastructure, and this is the amount of money we need to acquire additional park land and green space. And we've been doing that for years and years. And Travis County, as a result, has one of the most impressive amounts of public park and preserve land in the entire state of Texas. I think there's only like one or two counties that have a higher percentage of preserve and parkland than Travis County does. Oh. And that's because we're very, very conservative about when we come to voters for that. And we make sure that the money is spent in a good way. So one example of that park funding that we went to the voters for a few years ago that passed also overwhelmingly is we acquired the RGK Ranch. And so it's about 1,500 acres in western Travis County. It's land that the family had already gotten it platted. So it would have been thousands of new homes, creating additional strain on our water supply and the environment out there. But instead it is now a place that the public will be able to enjoy forever. And it will be a place where people eventually can go camping and hiking. It will also preserve our air quality and our water quality by having that big swath out there. So I think to answer your question, voters here have proven that if we come kind of with a well thought out proposal and make a good case for it, it has generally succeeded. And I do want to just on the affordability, there's one thing that I discovered. So all this discussion of, Prop Q at the city and the governor's, when he, I think, announced his reelection, talked about how much he's going to come after local governments on tax rates and things like that. There's more data that does not get talked about. And that is the state collects their revenue from people in Travis County as well. So 6.25% of everything that you buy goes to the state of Texas. And in 2024, that dollar amount was $2.4 billion of what they collected just within Travis County to go to the state of Texas.
$2.4 billion just in Travis County?
Just within Travis County. So, and by comparison, our entire budget this year is $2.1 billion. So it's less than that amount. The latest data I could get was 2024 for the state. So I'm guessing has gone up quite a bit because as inflation goes up, you pay more in sales tax, which is why it's so regressive and all that. So the state's getting that amount, $2.4 billion at least per year. They're also getting $700 million a year from our AISD school district taxes. So we pay, if you live in AISD's districts, which I do, we are paying $1.4 billion a year in AISD taxes. Only half of that stays here. The rest goes to the state in what is essentially a property tax. So that's $700 million a year. That's been going on since recapture started. I don't know, 20, 30 years, $2.4 billion in sales tax. And on the other end, they are creating expenses for us constantly. They don't have enough beds at the Austin State Hospital. So we have 158 people right now sitting in our jail waiting for a bed at the state hospital to have their competency restored simply so that they can go to trial or plea to get out of jail. That costs us anywhere, depending on their level of need, anywhere between $215 and $600 a day for us to house those people in Travis County. So that's an expense the state is lumping on you, me, everybody that lives here.
Right.
So.
Wow. So just a constant strain and pull on our resources and money. And then while also making money from us.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God. So, okay. With all of this in mind and with the culture the way it is, what is your overall outlook for Travis County in 2026?
Yeah. So I think it's great. So in talking to employers and folks that, are working to get companies to come here, I think this is still a very attractive place to live.
Yeah.
I think the biggest knock on it right now, frankly, is nothing that we're doing, but it's at the state level. It's all these laws that the state has passed. Employers from around the world, really, that is a big question mark for them. They're like, do I want to come to Texas even?
Right.
So far, they are still coming here, but that is more and more of a question mark I've noticed. But to answer your question, I think it is still going well. I think we have a great population here. It's a beautiful area. It's thriving. We've got a lot of young people, a lot of students. It's a vibrant place, and I think it's doing very well. And I think a lot of people still want to be here, So Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think we're doing great. I'm optimistic. I think there's also, because of the way political winds tend to go, I think there's a good chance that this November we will get some moderating forces at either the state, at the national level, definitely, and maybe even at the state level. And I think that will only help us. I think voters are going to realize that it's the urban areas in Texas that are, have the great growth that are that are getting employers to come because of the great cities that we have here. And it's not like the legislature would want us to think that we have these sort of rogue cities doing things that are hurting the economy. That's the opposite is true, that our cities here are great places to live. They're run by Democrats, and that's what is making the state's economy great.
I love that. Is there anything else that listeners should be on the lookout for, or that you want us to know that I didn't ask you about?
I think the other part, and I've sat here talking, smack about the state for a lot. There are a few areas that the state and I work well together. One is disaster response. I think, as horrid as disasters are, obviously, especially for people that live in the area affected, I have a good partnership with TDEM. TDEM, the state's emergency response apparatus, I've never seen them play politics in any way. They are, they try to help people. They work with the local communities. They work with the local county judges. I think that is good. And frankly, I wish that could be the model for state government in general. But it's not so far. But the other entity that on many levels I'm working very well with right now is TxDOT. So we have been talking for several years now about trying to improve passenger rail connectivity between Austin, Williamson County area, and Bear, San Antonio.
Right.
And they agreed to put $500,000 towards a feasibility study of how could we add 8 trains per day on the Union Pacific line, the one that today there's one Amtrak going south and one going north each day. And so this feasibility study that they are paying for would see what do we have to do to that track, to the infrastructure to add 8 passenger trains per day.
Wow.
We, as Travis County, are piggybacking on that. And we hired the same engineering firm to look at a new route, which would go from downtown out Highway 71, stop at the airport, and then continue on to 130, go down 130 south, and then come in on I-10 to downtown San Antonio.
Oh. And
that, to me, is very interesting because we theoretically, depending on what this study says, we could build that whole rail network, go 120, 130 miles an hour on it without taking any private land. And I know that's important to, state lawmakers, is that trains not take private land. We also wouldn't have to deal with Union Pacific, who, understandably so, they are trying to get traffic off roads by having freight lines, and
right.
It is hard to mix passenger and freight. So I don't fault them for wanting to make their business thrive, and I do appreciate that they do take cars off of the highways by running freight. But maybe those two things just aren't compatible. So maybe we need a new line that goes east to San Antonio for passengers, and then let them use that line for freight. But the other way would be better, in my opinion, but I just don't know that we're going to get there with Union Pacific.
And so right now there's a study to see what way we can go forward.
Yep, absolutely. And, this is something that everyone from, TxDOT, that obviously controlled by appointees of Governor Abbott, me, San Antonio County Judge, elected officials, Republican and Democrat in between, Samsung, Circuit of the Americas, the Spurs, other large employers in the area, everybody sees that this is necessary, that we just aren't going to be able to build enough highway miles, to address the fact that we are growing so fast, these two communities, Austin area, San Antonio area.
Yeah.
And we need better ways to get around.
Man, that's awesome. Judge Brown, thank you for being here. Thank you for coming on again and chatting with me and bringing me up to speed on everything. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I really appreciated that. I love talking with you and happy to do it anytime. Thank you so much.
That's all for today here on CityCast Austin. You can find links to Judge Brown's website in our show notes. If you enjoyed the show, tell your friends, rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our Hey Austin newsletter. And if you really love CityCast Austin and you really enjoyed the conversation that you heard today and you are having some feelings about it, support us. Become a neighbor today at membership.citycast.fm. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye, y'all.